Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Jermaine Ogden. I'm with Elevate Plus Consulting Group, and welcome to Business Strategies and Seasons, understanding your seasons and your business strategies for those particular seasons. I'm glad to see familiar faces, and I just really appreciate you guys being here. All right, so what's interesting is every place you go, no matter what you do, there is some type of season. So I was talking earlier about being from the East Coast, and we get 4 seasons, right? And we get 4 distinct seasons. So when it's summertime, it is hot. When it's winter and fall, you get the appropriate weather for those winter and fall months, right? The same thing happens for our businesses, and what we tend to do sometimes when we're working within our organizations, we don't understand what seasons we are in, and then we don't know how to pivot. So when you are in the summertime, we shouldn't have winter coats on, right? Right. Same thing with your businesses. You need to understand how to navigate that and what that looks like. Next slide. All right, so today in our agenda, we're gonna go over workshop objectives and business life cycle overview. We're gonna talk a little bit about characterizations of stages and self-assessment activity, breakout discussion and strategic focus area. And the breakout discussion will just be us having some conversation around some of the self-assessment activities. And then we're going to do some action planning and implementation accountability. We'll go into some Q&A, some startup phase overview and growth phase overview. We'll do that also with maturity phase overview and decline phase overview, transitioning phases and case study. And then we're going to get into some interactive exercising, planning tools and workshop recap. All right? All right, next slide. So understand the 4 stages. In this workshop, we're going to dive into the 4 distinct stages of business life cycle. We're going to talk about startup. We're going to talk about growth, maturity, and decline. And if you don't realize it, your business is going to go through these stages consistently, right? And at each stage, you have to figure out, what am I doing to transition to the next stage, right? So do I want to be in startup the whole time? You know, you have some people who just stay in startup. They never make over a certain dollar amount. They never actually they have a really expensive hobby, right? It's licensed, but it's not really a business, right? How do I get to growth from startup? How do I become a mature business? And what does it actually look like, you know, and so on. So we'll go through each stages, and then hopefully you'll learn what season what season your business is actually in. All right, you know I like quotes. Why do we say that you have to be interested in changing seasons instead of just being happier with being in one season, spring, for example? Why do we think that's the case? They're going to change whether you change or not. So you have to be okay with change. You're going to have to be okay with change. You can cut all the flowers, but you can't keep spring from coming. That's true, right? Nature always wears the colors of the spirit. I like that. Autumn is a second spring when every leaf is a flower. Okay. And the last but final one that I really enjoyed, there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven, right? So Ecclesiastic. So here's the common theme is change is going to come whether you like it or not. So just like the first quote, we have to be able to be okay with what change looks like for you, right? Sometimes you want to make sure that you are positioning yourself to initiate the change, right? So when we talked about being a startup company, how long do you want to be a startup company for? Well, what does that actually look like? What does it actually mean? How do you get into the growth phase, right? Is that more contracts? Is that a certain dollar amount? Is it a certain level of activity for your business? What does that actually look like? All right. All right. So the business life cycle, startup, growth, maturity, and decline. So one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to stay here a lot in our companies. And when we're here, we are experiencing a lot of fluctuating emotions. You're excited about what you want to do. You're inspired about what you want to do. You say, you know what, I think this is going to work for me. I'm going to be able to take care of myself and my family, my immediate needs. I'm gonna sit here. The problem is that a lot of times we don't know what it takes to get here. Or how do we come to maturity? Or additionally, when do we know we need to actually expand? And then if we see our business declining, what should we be doing to ensure that we can sustain our operations, right? So this is just the basic business life cycle. And this is, this is what the season is like. All right, so we got the characterization of stages. So again, in the startup stages, we have high innovation, establishing markets. We have the challenges with that in our startup phase. We are trying to identify the product market fit. In the growth phase, we got increasing revenue, expanding customer base. What happens when we grow too soon, grow too much, too soon? Yeah, it becomes a problem. So you have to make sure that you have a growth rate that is, that you have the capacity to actually deal with, okay? So when you're growing, you also want to make sure you're maintaining that quality during your expansion. So when you're in the startup phase, everybody is a good customer because you can handle them. And you're actually having those conversations with them. You're actually speaking with them, making sure that they had good customer service. If they order a product for you, you're gonna make those calls. But if you have 1,000 calls to make in your growth phase, are you making all those calls? Okay. So now I have to put systems in place to be able to support that, right? In the maturity phase, what it looks like is you have stable revenue and you have a good market presence. So we know what you do. We not only know what you do, but we know if I need something, I'm calling you, or I'm reaching out to you for those capability statements, right? So we know what to do. We know that we're in the marketplace, but now we got other people coming into the marketplace that does the same work. So how do we make sure that we have a difference of customer service, a difference of ensuring that that you have a good market stabilization that you can work with. And then again, if we're declining, is our revenue going down? And how do we adjust for that? So if I had 10 contracts last month and I only got 2 this month, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm hitting my numbers? You know, I talked about if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. How do I make sure I do that? So that means that I may have to switch up my business model because my business model may be outdated a little bit. Okay, so these are just the characterization of stages. The average startup phase is going to last between 1 to 3 years if you're consistent. But the challenge with that is that when we're starting up companies, a lot of times we don't have the capital to go hire someone else. We don't. So everything, what you're facing and what the challenges are is because everything is on you. You are the person who is generating the revenue. But the challenge is now we graduated from the PCBA, right? So we're grateful for that opportunity to be able to participate in the PCBA. And what the information that they gave was great. The dollar amounts that was associated was really good. But what happens after that, right? So you get the dollars, you get the capital, but what do you do then? How do you take it from one place to another? And that's really what we're talking about, being able to figure out, okay, well, where am I at right now? What's my current state, right? This is why strategic planning is so important. Business plan is good, but a strategic plan is better because you're going to have actionable items to be able to move some things forward. So startup is usually about 1 to 3 years. Now, additionally, in other phases, the actual spring phase, sometimes it lasts about 3 to 5 years, right? There's a story that I like to talk about with Joseph. Joseph in the Bible, where they talked about a famine that actually happened, right? And the beautiful thing about this story is that he got wind that it was going to be 7 years of famine and 7 years of just nothing. And imagine being gifted with this information, being gifted with the opportunity to know, okay, listen, I'm getting ready to come into my season, and I'm gonna have the ability to be able to capitalize on 7 years. I'm just gonna get all the contracts. I'm gonna get all the money that's associated with that. My business is gonna be running very, very, very well. But I got this other thing that's kind of over my head a little bit, that I know winter is coming. And during winter, it's going to be very slow, if not anything. So how do I plan and prepare for that, right? And in this story, he's gifted with this information, and the reality is he had to come up with a strategic plan to be able to support the nation, not only during the summer months, but then the winter months too. So, and that's why strategy is important. That's why understanding what your current state is important. That's why you really have to dive really into to the details of your business to understand what strategies you need to start implementing for that particular season. So a lot of times we think that sometimes it's a mindset. Sometimes we think just because I have so much that I have to give what I have away. You know, and I'm dating myself, but when I was younger, we used to have those fable stories, the Esau fables. And then, they used to have the one, I think, with the ant or whatever, and they will always store up, they always were working, to store up their actual, collecting their goods, getting food in, and then when the hard times came, whatever, they had so much, whatever. And the reality is that we sometimes, we give people what we give them our gems instead of charging them for it. And it's a mindset shift. Now, in each of these phases, we're talking about the startup phase, a lot of market research. So I'm using this business because it's really interesting, because a lot of times you have to do, in the startup phase, you have to do extra market research to figure out how you're going to find, attract, and pull in your clients. Now we know that there's clients out there that needs his business. We already know. But how does he get in front of them? So that's where the market research comes in at. Understanding, figuring out who are your competitors? How many assisted living places that are near yours, right? Is there a website or something that shows the number of assisted living places in Pierce County? For example, when I first started my consulting firm, I wanted to get into the government space and during consulting work. One of the things you can do is the traditional route is to go ahead and get registered, which was before SAMS, and then get your UEIN number and all this other stuff to get so that you can bid on government contracts, right? Well, at the time, I wasn't ready for that. So I said to myself, well, what would be the best way to get a contract without having to bid and compete with all these big consulting firms and just put all this effort in and not really win it, you know? So what happened was I went on the government website and I saw everybody who does what I do, because by the website, they have to list all the contracts that they award, right? Some of your other industries have to do the same thing. And because they have to list the contracts they award, they also list their contact information, the name of the company, and the contract, and the award amount. So what do I know? So that means I know who my competitors are. I know how much they're charging. I know their contact information. So what I said to myself is, I'm just gonna reach out to everyone on this list and say, I'll subcontract work that for. I'll subcontract. That was my strategy to get new business. I'm willing to, here, I introduce myself. Here's what I do. Seems like there's some synergy between the work that I do, so in the work that you do. And would you be willing to meet with me and we can talk about maybe subcontracting out some work? I send a long email out to I send individual emails out to everyone. I got 3 return messages. Out of those 3 return messages, I got 1 government contract out of it. And it was a good contract, right? So that was my market research. That was what I did in order to get into that space. Now, depending on my revenue streams, and depending on your revenue streams, you may have to do different market research. So like, for example, we do data analytics for organizations. So we built out that revenue model. That market research was different than what I did for organizational development. So it was very different. So you have to figure out what market research that you're willing to do. In your growth phase, you want to create infrastructure, systems. I'm not going to say it again. You have to have systems. The challenge with what you were saying earlier, as it relates to maybe you're on and off, and it's not really due to the season that you're in. You're creating the season because you're on and off, and it's because of focus. Is because you have to duplicate yourself. How do you do that when it's only you? And you do that through systems. You have to figure out, what can I automate? You have to ask yourself. And you probably think that because of the industry you're in, I can't automate this, I can't automate. There's certain things you can't automate. Or what can I go externally for that I don't have to produce myself, right? Do I really need to run all the projects I have coming into my organization? No. I could hire someone part-time or project-based to where, depending on the project, they get paid when I get paid. Now I've just created what? Leverage. Try to get through this. Now, maturity, optimize processes. The problem with these 2 phases, it's either sometimes we're all the way here or we're all the way here. This phase, we're probably running around like a chicken with our head cut off because I got so much stuff going on. I can't do it all. So now I have to be focused on creating those systems. This phase, I'm starving. right? I'm eating here, but it's gluttony. I'm starving here and I'm trying to get more on my plate. Here in the maturity phase, it's a balanced meal. I'm not working all times of night. I got steady client flow. I have processes in place, so I know as soon as I get someone who's interested in my home, they can go online, they can put in their application, put in their payment method when they want to start. They can do all that stuff without even interacting with me. Then it'll schedule an appointment automatically through Calendly or whatever source that you want to, technical source that you want to use. I haven't even talked to the client yet, but you already can make a schedule. You can already schedule on my calendar. So all I have to do is, so when I look at my calendar, I'm not managing the process for you filling out the application. I'm not managing the process for you putting in your payment and your insurance. I'm not managing any of that. The only thing I'm managing is my calendar. And when I see you on my calendar, I know that you have booked a time with me to be able to talk about getting your loved one into my home. And because I have my system in place, I know what your needs are. I know what's most important for you. I know how soon you want to be able to be in there. I know if you can financially do it. So I took all those other things that I was managing and I put a system around it, and now I'm only managing the actual calendar itself. So when I picked up my calendar, all your information, your detail is already there, right? This is where you want to constantly try to live at as much as possible. Optimizing your processes, figuring out what your processes are, and then constantly figuring out, how do I make this better? How do I get better at this? Decline. So, innovation. Your focus should be on innovation. When you see a decline in your business, this is what we have to do. We have to sit around and have these conversations. We have to think differently. We have to innovate. We have to create something differently. We have to think outside the box. Listen, 100% of nothing is what? Nothing, right? So we can't be business owners that think that we have to have all of the revenue. We have to be innovative. If you do good business, business will come to you. If you take care of those families, when you get them in, and they see you have all these things laid out, the nutritionists, they love your facility. They become your marketing people. All you got to do is get them to the store. When you get there, when they get in the store, then you sell them. You sell them on you. Here's what we can do for you. Let me get you on a newsletter. Let me do this. Let me do that. Right? So when you see your business on a decline, you have to start becoming innovative. Thinking outside the box. This is what when you talk about being paralyzed, this is what the challenge of being paralyzed happens, because sometimes it messes up with how you think. Some people say when their business is on decline, this is never going to work. I got to do something different. I watched the video one time about this dripping water on YouTube. I thought it's kind of weird, but they was showing me the water dripped on a particular piece of rock for years, and then because of the water constantly dripping on this rock, it actually created this indentation in this rock. So now, it actually formed the rock. It was a crazy thing. Now, in our minds, we're thinking this rock is hard. The water is is liquid. Why would it be able to do that? But it's because of time. You have to be consistent. The reason why you're going through seasons is because, one, you're creating the seasons. They're not natural. They're kind of self-induced. The natural seasons you can plan for, but these ones are all within. They're internal. So then now we have to find mitigation strategies to be able to deal with those, right? So when we see declining activity, we have to focus on innovation, and we have to reevaluate our business model. When I say 100% of nothing is nothing, that's why I said start brokering relationships. You're in the right area. Developing a strategic action plan. In this section, we will explore how to create an effective action plan tailored to your business needs. It involves setting clear objectives, identifying resources, and outlining steps for implementation. Emphasizing accountability and scheduling can ensure your plan is actionable. The problem is that we can sit in these meetings and have these conversations amongst each other, but if you don't do anything, it's for naught. You have to take what we say and put it into practice. All right, we're gonna do a little deep dive of the startup phase. This section focuses on the startup phase with insights into its characteristics, challenges, and strategic actions. Now, if you're living in this phase, we wanna talk about the challenges that are specifically in this phase. Key issues include identifying product market fit and establishing brand awareness in a competitive landscape. How many times have anyone ever heard me say, when you go to the store to buy a loaf of bread, how many people are selling loaves of bread in the store? A lot. So you go down the bread aisle, right? We all do it. You got Wonder, you got the organic bread. You like multi-grain, you got multi-grain. What is it?
Low carbs.
Low carbs, gluten-free.
Thin slice.
I just saw the thin slice. Yes, I just saw the thin slice a couple of weeks ago. What am I saying about this? What do I mean when I say there's so many people selling bread? So what? There's a lot of people selling what you do. What makes you different? What makes you unique? What makes you? What is that thing that's going to give them that warm and fuzzy for them to come to your shop, to buy your goods? Identity crisis. People suffer from identity crisis. They struggle with trying to figure out who they are because they typically want to be like everyone else because they see everybody else winning. So they start chasing squirrel. They start chasing things, trying to duplicate other people's systems that don't work for them, right? Your system has to work for you, right? So your strategic action in this phase, if you're falling in this phase, essential actions involve conducting market research, we talked about that, and creating a minimum viable product to test concept, proof of concept, right? So when we got into the data world, we did a proof of concept with another organization to be able to see if we could take their data and be able to do the analytics around it and support their operations. That's what the proof of concept looks like. Once we realized it worked with one, then we created a package and then we monetized it, right? And then we sold it to other people. So in this phase, you want to look at whatever your minimum viable products are, whatever that looks like. Create the package. First of all, see if it works. Create the package, monetize it, and sell it to people. So the deep dive on the growth phase. This section addresses the growth phase, emphasizing its unique characteristics and how to navigate challenges. During the growth phase, businesses experience rapid revenue increases, and a larger customer base, crucial for long-term viability. The challenges that typically happens in the growth phases as businesses grow, they face challenges like maintaining product quality and managing intensified competition in the market. So, who loves Starbucks? I do. I love Starbucks. Coffee is strong, right? Mm-hmm. Coffee's strong. I like it. But if I go to Starbucks on 38th Street, I know that the treatment that I get there on 38th Street is the same treatment I'm probably going to get in Mountain Highway. And it's probably the same treatment I'm going to get when I go to Seattle. Because when I walk in, they're going to greet me. They're going to say, welcome to Starbucks, or hello, well, thanks for coming in. And they're going to be very friendly, right? That's consistent. That's branding. Now, do they make their customers say that? Probably. But does after a while, not customers, but they make their employees say that? Probably. But after a while, it becomes natural for them, right? You remember when Nordstrom's, anybody shopped at Nordstrom's? You remember when Nordstrom's, you used to be able to take anything back? Yeah. You didn't have to have a receipt. You could have bought it years ago. Say what? Costco, right? Why do they do that? Consistency, branding. They want to make sure that whatever experience that you've had with them, they want to maintain that. Product quality, strategic actions. We want to make sure to succeed in the growth phase, we want to invest in a scalable infrastructure. That's what I was saying about the investment home. It has to be scalable. When they are fixing up properties, whatever, they want to keep them the same color because it's scalable, and prioritize enhancing customer service to retain satisfaction. So what you're trying to do is, in that first home, you want to constantly be making sure that, hey, I want to make sure that my customers have what they need. Do you need anything else? A family member might say, it would be nice if this home had this. It would be nice if this home had this. And then you collect those surveys or those comments, right? And then you figure out, okay, sometimes it's the little things that you can put into a property that may encourage them to be able to stay longer, right? Or for your business, for example, if you're talking to HR, and let's say HR, hey, listen, they really want to work with you, but they're seeing, well, we have these employee issues, and could you sell us a bigger package on something? Could you put together a bigger framework or something? And you start kind of massaging what you normally your normal product offering, and provide something more for them, right? And maybe it's just a little bit more expensive, just a little extra touch to what you do, So yeah, be careful at growth phase, because on the growth phase, whatever, you can actually get to a place where you can grow too fast too soon. And then when that happens, you don't do anything well. That makes sense? So you're not serving anybody. Everybody's getting the bad spiel, or the bad, service provided. All right, deep dive into the maturity phase. This section explores the maturity phase, detailing its characteristics, challenges, and strategic options. During the maturity phase, businesses experience stable revenues and have a well-established presence in the market. All right. What's the big healthcare organization in Pierce County? Multicare, right? And then maybe the Franciscans, right? Well, we know that because they have a stable place in the marketplace. We know that there's signage, there's presence in the marketplace, right? Now, companies facing declining growth rates and encounter market saturation requiring strategic adjustments to overcome these hurdles. So these are the challenges here. Some organizations, the problem with leaders is they say, well, if it's not broken, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Or it's always worked. This is the way it's always been.
Like Kodak.
Yeah, right? Kodak was a big, you must have been I had it in my preparation. Because Kodak struggled when digital print started to come, right? And they produced an amazing product, and they kept it the same, right? And they struggled so bad, plants started to close down. It was big on the East Coast because it was based out of New York. So when you stay in this phase, this is good, but you constantly have to be thinking outside of the box. Like this is not a bad place to be. However, if you can't plan for Uber, Lyft, so the taxi companies, they had a great thing. So I'm from upstate New York, right? So taxis it was a big thing back in 80s and 90s, right? And who would have thought that now people are picking people up in their own vehicles, right? Because, the yellow cabs have been out there for the longest. No one would have thought that was going to be a thing. Now you got two companies that are cornering the market. Well, let me tell you something else. I was just speaking in Phoenix. It was in Arizona a few months back. They have this car that picks you up, drives by itself. And I'm getting off the airport. Now, let me tell you, I'm standing waiting for my lift to go to the hotel. And I see this car drive up. Guy gets in and drives off. Now, I wanted to make sure I wasn't losing my mind because I said to myself, I don't see anyone driving in that car. And I said, well, that's probably, because I was kind of mesmerized by the little spinning thing they have on top of the car. I was like, what is that? What is that? And I saw the guy in the back seat, but I didn't see the driver. And in my mind, initially, I just said, I just must have missed him, right? Then, 15 minutes later, another one comes by. And I said to myself, now they're down here. And I said, when he passes me, I'm going to watch this time, right? I see the guy get in the car. And then they pass me. I know I didn't see a driver in that car. And I said, so I'm talking to the person. I said, what's going on here? He starts laughing at me. He says, they have this here. They self-driving cars. I said, well, how do you get a self-driving car? So he goes in to explain the process of being able to do that. But listen, if taxi didn't anticipate Uber and Lyft, and Uber and Lyft hasn't anticipated the self-driving car, what are we doing to manage the transitions of the business cycle and the business model, right? Now we know Uber and Lyft, you can get food. You can get Uber Eats. You can get all this food, right? So you don't have to actually have regular how it used to happen in the past, the old school delivery drivers to come drop off your food. Now, who would have thought that was going to happen? So my thing is, if you stay in one phase too long, taxi drivers, you may find that someone may come in and figure out a better way to deliver the same care, same product, right? So strategic actions to thrive. Businesses should innovate their products and optimize operational processes to enhance efficiency and effectiveness. All they did was they had the same delivery of service. They just optimized their efficiencies and effectiveness. Like the organizations, for the food organizations, like us, I don't have to hire delivery drivers. I can just make the product and then contract with Uber Eats, and then they'll get the charge and you'll pay for it. I don't have to do that. So if you stay in this phase too long, it's still a problem. Okay, deep dive in decline phase. This section examines the decline phase, focus on necessary transformation and strategic actions. Okay, so what we're gonna do, let's talk a little bit about in the decline phase. Businesses face revenue decreases and shrinking market share, prompting urgent strategic reconsiderations. This is what happened with the taxi people, right? When you remember when Uber first came out and they started cornering the market and everything, then there was this big thing about they couldn't be in certain places and like on the airports. So they because they were getting the market share, right? Challenges. Companies encounter significant challenges such as outdated business models, restriction posed by financial limitations during a decline. So in the decline phase, to counteract decline, it is crucial to reevaluate business models and consider investing in research and development for innovation. So this is the fancy way of just saying you got to start thinking outside the box. This is why you have to know your numbers. So certain things in each of these phases, they trigger for you to understand which phase that you're into. So if you see a decline in your revenue, is that a decline in foot traffic? Where's the decline coming from? That's why you have to know your numbers. Transitioning phases, how to manage transitions. Navigate business phase requires strategic planning and agile management. Effective transition strategies include assessing current operations, anticipating market changes, stuff that we've already talked about, and aligning resources, engaging employees and stakeholders ensure smoother shifts. Furthermore, leveraging data analytics can inform decisions. So this is one reason why I got into data, because I like building dashboards. You know I'm a numbers person. So certain dashboard, huh? You're not? Well, that's what. You said you don't want to be.
I just have to learn how.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. Numbers is just another way of communicating, right? We talked about a quick breakdown of, let's say the mortgage is $3,000. He got 4 people in there. They're paying $3,000 a piece. So that's $12,000, whatever. We're just communicating we're just showing, breaking it what our breakdown looks like, right? Well, if I want an 80% markup, right? Well, what does that look like? Now I have to do the numbers backwards and make sure, and that tells me how much I can charge the people. It's fascinating. It's fascinating, right? So what I want you to get from this is that whatever phase that you're in, I want you to figure out, do I need to transition? What does that look like? What do I need to start doing that I'm not doing? I got to think outside the box. I got to figure out some more innovative strategies. Don't freak out during transitions too. Don't freak out. It happens to everybody. What did we say in the beginning of the slides? That we know our seasons are coming. So if I know, so here, because it's a little bit different, fall, because in the fall here in Washington State, it gets real rainy here, right? What month is that? October? October, right? And then it doesn't really get like New York cold here. But when winter comes, you already know winter is coming. So you don't have summer clothes out for winter, right? You know that I need to keep, when fall is here, I need to keep that umbrella by the door. It's not hard rain, but it's misty, right? So I need to make sure that I'm prepared for the weather that I'm in. So that's why when we talk about don't get so hung up on seasons changing, because it's a good thing. You just have to make sure that you're dressed for the right season that you're in. So these transitions that's happening, you feeling like it's winter in certain spaces, that's okay. I just want to give you the coat to put on so that you stay warm in this particular season, right? Because it's gonna get better. Sometimes you can force it to get better by putting other systems in place to make sure that that the winter only lasts so long, Lastly, it's last, but it's important. Accountability. You got to have an accountability partner. You have to have accountability people. You have to be first accountable to yourself, but then you have to put things on paper and have people hold you accountable for these things, right? This is why I say even a coach needs a coach.
Is that like train the trainer?
Train the trainer, yeah. Right? The best way to learn is train the trainer, right? So, have you ever was trying to teach someone something that you really didn't know too well? And you were like, man, I didn't know that myself. And you actually you actually learned something in the process. The same thing. You have to have an accountability partner. You have to have accountability on your metrics too. You have to know those seasons that you're actually in so that you know how to shift. So in a detailed, sometimes half day, sometimes we do this in 2 days, a strategic planning session. These are the tools that we utilize to help determine how to strategize for the season that we're in. We use these SWOT analysis. I think I talked to you about these before. They're focused on identifying strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. Pestle analysis. We use that to analyze external factors affecting businesses. And the balanced scorecard, which is tracking performance and against strategic goals. Now, I just gave you, these are just tools in the toolbox. But when you go through a strategy session, a full strategic planning session, they use these tools so that you can come out with some type of tangible item that you can say, well, this is what I'm going to do to reach to this next phase. And I'm going to pull on these different levers that's going to attract the type of growth that I want in the season that I want. Okay? I know it can be frustrating to be sitting in a season that you don't want to be in. I've worked with business owners who sometimes they're in tears because they have dreams that's bigger than where they can see themselves at currently, right? And they don't know how to get there. What I will say is that if someone else did it, you can do it. We just have to put the work in, build the right relationships, think outside the box, figure out who we need to be partnering with to accomplish our goals. And 100% of nothing is still zero.